You're a Kiwi wild card.
Oh, mate, you know it.
I know it, and it's just one thing that really bugs me about the Kiwi summer. And it's just like, you're cooking a barbie, sausages on the barbie, a few steaks and whatnot, and there's no tomato sauce.
Cardinal sin, son. What are you doing?
What's doing? Where's the tomato sauce? It's a bit like, you got a good sausage, crispy on the outside, succulent on the inside.
Ooh.
It's a bit like Sean Johnson, but he's playing behind a poor forward pack.
Yeah, all right. You could say that, yeah.
Chuck a big forward pack there, going forward, and you got tomato sauce, and you got a fantastic sausage. Beautiful.
That sounds like one hell of an idea. Alrighty, we're going at this one hard and fast. First on the agenda, the Kiwis versus England on the weekend there, Doc. They got a bit of a victory, so I understand.
A bit of a victory indeed, 1 point.
Just a little bit of a victory. Hey, they all count for the same thing.
It does indeed. It was an interesting game because the Kiwis were definitely on top. Made plenty of metres through the middle. Yeah. Sean Johnson had the ball on a string, but only 1 point in it. But I think if you're the type of person who woke up Sunday morning, didn't catch the game, just saw Sean Johnson hits winning field goal, you're thinking it was a close one, but Sean Johnson hit that field goal with about 15 minutes to go, 12 minutes to go.
He did.
And then the Kiwis just closed out the game. So I think the way the last 10 minutes panned out kind of reflected how the Kiwis were playing.
Yeah, because from what I saw, Sean Johnson, I thought he looked sharp. I thought he looked good. But you also had another theory about this that you wanted to throw out there, because Sean Johnson didn't look sharp against Australia, but he wasn't the only one, and perhaps those two things are somehow correlated.
They are correlated indeed, to my genius mind.
Well,
In Perth, Kiwis fullback didn't show up.
No.
In England, against England, they definitely did, and they did so against Sam Burgess, James Graham. You know, a pretty decent England forward pack.
Sammy looked good too.
Jason Taumalola, he looked good in the number 13
he looked
jersey.
even better.
Over 200 metres. And how about this wild card? All the middle forwards for the Kiwis average 10 metres per carry. So every time they're running the footy, they're making that 10 metres, they're getting a quick play of the ball. Sean Johnson's getting early footy, then he can work his magic. But just the sheer power, and that's a signature to this Kiwis team, speed, power, footwork through the middle. It was all on display against England.
Well, that's it right there then. That's what they got to do against Australia, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed. And another low-key feature in that was Jordan Kahu. Stepped up big time. Threw a try assist off Sean Johnson. I don't think there's a safer fullback at the moment than Jordan Kahu. Like, he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't drop the footy. He doesn't make a bad decision. Everything's A-okay. Interesting dilemma when Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's back.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon he's got that chance to push him?
He's going to be playing fullback all throughout the Four Nations. He could do a good job there.
Yeah, but he won't be playing fullback when he gets back into next NRL season, and Roger will be. But hey, you know what they say? It's a good dilemma to have.
It's a fantastic dilemma to have.
Not so fantastic. Would be if we swang this thing along to the subcontinent. Ooh, yeah. See, this was on at the same time as the Kiwis, as a lot of Premier League overnight on a late Saturday night, early Saturday morning. Didn't watch a lot of the Blackcaps, I'll be honest. Did try to keep up with it, flicking back and forth. But it all happened so quickly.
It was gone.
I thought we were set up there okay. It was like, okay, we could be doing a little better. We're a partnership short here, but look, Kane can see us all right. But then, God, like they just, what do they say? Like 10 pins, you know, all tumbling down.
Yep.
And I meant Mishra Boulder strike.
Boulder blade turning strike, that's what he does. How are you feeling about the ODI
out of the gutter
series on the back of, like, we were having a discussion about the Test series being quite disappointing. Right. Here we are having, like, the ODI series on a whole wasn't too bad, but this last, in a series decider, the last ODI, reasonably average, leaves a poor taste in the mouth. How are you feeling about the whole ODI series in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, reasonably average. We didn't give them that bad of a score on that first. We bowled okay. It was just, we collapsed for, 78 or 79. Like, this, I don't know. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth because for 4.5 games, we were arguably, I mean, maybe we weren't going to even still, we maybe weren't going to chase that total down, but at least we were looking semi-competitive through most of that series. Just the way it ended clouds over the whole thing, eh? Like, it feels worse than it probably was, but at the same time, like, I don't think it's a good thing. I mean, it's a handy thing from these players' point of view, but I don't think it's a particularly good thing when it's the same couple guys having to carry the... Like, if Tom Latham or Kane Williamson didn't go big in that series, no one did. Like, it was a bit of a struggle. And when other people got scores, like Southey got a 50 in the first game, batting with Tom Latham, you know what I mean? Like, one of them was anchoring the innings or no one was. And who else can bat time? Who else can turn singles over? Like, it wasn't good.
Are you any reason to be dramatic about these results?
Well, probably not, because it's in India, tough conditions, against a very good team. Fairly different to their test team in a few key places, but, like, I don't know. What do you think? You panicking?
I'm not panicking, but I think it is a warning shot because people seem to forget that in the honeymoon phase of the Brendan McCullum captaincy, a lot of those results, especially in the test arena, a lot of those results came at home or against weaker opposition.
Yeah, where was the World Cup held after all?
Yeah, and so...
Yeah. The one game we lost was the one game we didn't play in New Zealand.
Indeed, and then you come big games in ODI cricket, they tend to struggle. And then in test cricket against quality opposition, they tend to struggle. And the other thing is, this team isn't getting better.
No.
And that's a worry. That there doesn't seem to be any direction or any development in this Black Caps team. They've kind of plateaued, or at worst, kind of gotten a bit worse. Bit shittier.
As opposed to the Bangladeshi team who just beat England.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to, I wrote his name down, Mehdi Hassan Miraz. His first two games of his test match career, he took 19 wickets, man of the series, he took 6 for 3 times. That's not bad, eh? Not bad for a 19-year-old kid.
There's nothing better than seeing the Poms lose test cricket games.
I agree with that one.
Black Caps struggling. Lydia Ko is also struggling wildcard. How about this?
Yeah.
Since the British Open on the 28th of July to the Malaysian LPGA tournament last weekend, her results have been tied for 40th, tied for 7th, tied for 5th, tied for 43rd, tied for 20th, tied for 51st, and tied for 12th.
Right, so I guess regardless of what people think about the old Olympics and golf and all that stuff, she did kind of peak for that one, didn't she? It was almost a little bit of an anomaly for her back half of 2016.
And all these poor results have come around the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas she had really good results kind of in patches earlier on in the season in the middle. And then it kind of, her worst results were tied for 12th, tied for 13th sort of thing. And now she's dropping far deeper down the pack than just slipping outside the top 10. And it's a bit of a concern, but the thing with Super Duper Lydia is she is Super Duper Lydia and she's still like 19 years old. Yeah. So she goes right.
It's just plenty of time to go.
But the other thing here as well, because she's now second in the race to CME Globe rankings and the Rolex World rankings. So she's gone from being first by a long shot to being second. Now that's
Tell you what, the grizzly old rugby riders aren't going to like that one too much.
No, they won't.
It's funny how that worked, eh? Like, how do you get the what would you call them, the hallmarks of traditional New Zealand sporting media? A 45-year-old bloke who likes the rugby and a beer, you know what I mean? There have been several presenters as such on the television newses throughout our newspapers going back many years. How do you get them to care about women's sport? Find a very non-offensive female golfer to be absolutely incredible at it. And that's what did it. And are you hearing as much from her in the news as she struggled?
Not overly.
No. Funny how fickle that can be, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you somewhere where you will still find Lydia Ko stuff, and that's on the old niche.
It sets up a very interesting end to the LPGA Tour season because...
It does, really.
She needs to win tournaments. She needs to finish in top 5s to get back to number 1 on the CME Globe and the Rolex rankings. So pressure is on Lydia Ko now. She hasn't really been in that position where she's got to chase someone to finish number 1. interestingly.
I like it. I think it's not a bad thing to go. How they say in the American sports they call the old sophomore syndrome. That second year thing, where you start in a flash as you're new, as you're fresh on the scene, and then as you sort of ease into the career there, you take that little dip and you've got to work through that, and it's the great players who can repeat that, who can get back. I think it's not a bad thing earlier on in your career to have a few struggles, just to experience that, to know how to get out of that, to know how to cope with that if you should have a bad day in a major tournament, that kind of stuff.
And people also sleep on the fact that women's golf's pretty good.
Yeah, and getting better all the time. It's one of the faster growing sports out there.
It's not just like Lydia Ko's just running around the course playing by herself.
No.
There's other very good
she's
golfers
not.
from a range of countries as well. It's definitely a worldwide thing. Now, Mr. Wildcard, another lad with a bit of pressure on him.
For different reasons, arguably.
One of our niche case favourites is Steven Adams, and he's coming off a pretty impressive season last season where he kind of flourished in the playoffs, and with a different growing role in the OKC Thunder.
Yes,
and now he is here. Kevin Durant's gone. Steven Adams is suddenly in a bit of a dynamic duo pairing with Russell Westbrook, and he's chasing I'll settle with a lucrative contract, just a run-of-the-mill NBA contract, let's be honest here, Wildcat.
In 2016, but run-of-the-mill, everyone's getting max contracts these days. Yeah, so he started off with these sort of... no one really quite knows what to expect of him, because he definitely peaked in the playoffs, but... throughout the season, I think he was looking at averages of around about 8s and 7s, for per games, rebounds and points. So far this season, through his first 3 games, I can tell you he played 36 minutes against Philadelphia, 16 points, shooting 7 of 16 with 5 rebounds. Against Phoenix, 40 minutes, and only 9 points though, 3 of 8 shooting, 10 rebounds. That was a game in which Russell Westbrook scored a 50-point triple-double. So not too many other people needed to really be all that involved in that. He just had to play some nice defense.
Or you, bruh, or you.
Or you
have a shot.
Well, you know that's going to be the formula for the Thunder. But it's quite cool to see that, to get his triple-doubles, he's also got to get assists. And one of his favourite ways to get the assists is that little lob up the top. Steven Adams coming over the top, slamming that sucker down through the hoop. 30 minutes against the Lakers in their third game. He scored 14 points, shooting 6 of 12 with 12 rebounds. So his first double-double of the season. I think that... to be honest, I'm not really sure what to expect of some of these things. To find the overall trend, I expect the points are going to come around to the sort of mid-teens, his points total. Don't really know with the rebounds, because he does play with, for example, Westbrook is an insanely good rebounding guard. Oladipo can rebound well. Robertson rebounds well as well. Have you seen that dude's arms?
Long.
They're longer than his legs.
Woo!
Right. So that's kind of interesting. I think what also is interesting, he's got 7 steals in 3 games, which is handy. You have seen a few too many turnovers in the beginning of the season, but I think that's just sort of him working stuff out. What I've liked, I guess most important, is that they've won all 3 of those games, although those 3 teams were pretty pissed last season, so read into that what you will. What I like is you're seeing, I think the main trend, the one thing that we can read into so far, is the increased usage. He's taking a lot more shots. He's missing a lot more shots, but he's missing a lot more because he's started to expand that range. He's shooting from further out from the hoop. And keep an eye next time you see him. I think he's on tally against the Clippers in a day or two. When he gets sort of 6 to 10 foot range, he's got this new shot he's been working on. It's a one-handed floater. He'll just jump up, won't go for the old flexie like this. He'll just go for the one hand, lob that thing through.
A bit like the shot put.
That is a fantastic comparison.
If those don't
a
know,
lot like the shot put.
National sport Aotearoa is the shot put. So Steven Adams has obviously been practicing.
And he comes from a royal family the royal family as far as New Zealand's national sport goes. I think this is a low-key thing that I want to finish this Steven Adams thought on. Because you're going to see a big increase in certain stats for him, particularly points, and probably maybe a slight boost in rebounds. I don't know, because what I said earlier, I don't know he's going to have a major boost there, but you are going to see him used a lot more, so you're going to see him score a few more points. I reckon he's in a little smoky bet for the NBA's most improved this season. I'm going to write something in the coming days about the undercover MVP candidates in the NBA. But as far as the most improved goes, I mean, that's a major honor, and Steven Adams could, he's I think legitimately in the fold for that, if he can have the kind of season that people are projecting of him.
He is Aotearoa's MVP.
He's already out. He's the MVP of our hearts.
Wrigley, razzle dazzle wildcard.
Ooh.
You going first, or you want me to just razzle and dazzle you before you try to come back to whatever I'm going to say?
Well, I got a fairly good one this week, so I wouldn't mind leading things off with a good old Tom Latham half-ton laying the platform. We often talk about Winston Reid and how good that bugger is, because he's fantastic, he's very good. But there's another fella who's playing not quite in the top tier of England, but very close to that top tier, and what is commonly referred to as one of the most competitive football leagues on the planet. The English Championship is as lucrative as it gets too, because you're competing for that promotion spot into the Premier League. Chris Wood for Leeds, right? Leeds had a little bit of a scratchy start. Chris Wood was up and down slightly, a few missed chances, some average stuff, but just recently he's really started to get things going. And the important thing is that he always scored a couple of goals even when he wasn't doing too well. He's got 10 goals in 18 games in all comps now, including over the last week he scored twice in 2 games. One was an extra time equaliser against Norwich in the EFL Cup, commonly known as the League Cup, which then went to penalties, and he then also scored the first penalty in the shootout, which they won. Meaning they get a trip to Anfield in the quarterfinals of that competition, so that's nothing to be slept on there either. That's a big game coming up for Woody. As well as that, I guess, just because Winston Reid always interferes in whenever you're talking about any other flying Kiwi. His team, West Ham, also made the EFL Cup quarterfinals, where they will be playing Manchester United. So that's a couple of classic ties coming up for a couple classic Kiwi footy players there. Woody only scored 12 goals last season. He was a little bit up, a little bit down, injured for a little while there. He's already got 10 this season. He could definitely be hitting 20, 25 for the campaign. He also bagged one against Burton Albion on the weekend to put Leeds now just a single point off the playoff places in the English Championship. That's some quality form, mate. That's some good stuff. And he's just showing, Woody will be on fire. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to be finding the matches to light Woody up. As long as you give him the good service, mate, he's onto it. He'll put them away.
Who are you supporting when Winston Reid plays against Manchester United?
Manchester United, but
sad.
I actually had it last year because they played in the same, I think it was the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. I think United won. The Marcus Rashford came on and scored a winner.
Sad, bro. Sad to
And I
Winnie.
think it might have even been in a replay. I'm not a handy on that. I know it is sad to Winnie, but look, West Ham had a loss on the weekend to Everton. They're still not that far out of the relegation zone. He's just got to concentrate on the league for a little while,
So because they're losing, you don't support them?
I don't support them anyway.
Not boys, bro. Not
I just
boys.
support him.
Razzle dazzle Amy Sathwaite. The White Ferns just cricketing extraordinaire.
Yeah.
You know why she's a cricketing extraordinaire, wildcard?
Does a bit of this and a bit of that.
She sure
Does
does.
it bloody well.
In South Africa, across 7 ODIs, Amy Sathwaite, most runs in the series. And she took 11 wickets, which was good enough to tie her for first with wickets. But she had a superior average, so she finished at the top of the list, meaning Amy Sathwaite took the most runs, scored the most runs, and was the best bowler.
So just generally the best player.
Just generally the best player. A few stats here.
That's good.
She scored 344 runs from 7 games at an average of 68.8 with 3 half centuries. And with the ball, she took 11 wickets at an average of 15.72. The average was good enough to see her finish at the top of the rankings with the ball. 2.94 RPO. Very handy with the ball, very handy with the bat, and a key figure in the White Ferns clinching that series over South Africa. So they are back home. They are hosting Pakistan in the coming weeks.
Better be watching that one. Be keeping an eye on. I love it. I love it. That's some quality razzling and dazzling this week. Bang.
Wildcard, if I may.
You
Just
may.
like to do a little reading here. Coming from Loot, Still Slumming, off the West 1996 mixtape.
Alright, let me just prepare myself.
Took my work badge off and realised I'm back in the hood. Like, what's good? My cousin called, said he's coming through. Like, what up? Why are you back, bruh? So you should be laying tracks with J. Cole. Who knows? Maybe he signed your ass. See, I don't know how this rap thing go. From the looks of it, you're closer than most brothers that I know. Please explain. The way I see it, you're paving lanes. Or your songs did some things for me. Had me thinking we was trapped, but look, you set us free. So let that simmer in your loins for a moment.
Your loins. Definitely the place to let it simmer. Well, we do this thing on the old lounging section of the show where we just roll through what we're watching, listening to, and reading. So, shall I start? Shall you start?
I'll follow your lead, mate. You're the resident wild card.
That is what they call me. Well, what I've been reading this week, and I like to keep up with my proper reading and reading books and intelligent, literature and such. But I haven't really had the time this week because there's been so much good sport on. What I've found myself doing is just constantly, and this is similar, I think, to what you, to what I know you've also had a few predilections for the same thing, just flicking through scoreboards and stuff. But in particular, mine was just with the NBA starting, all these games, trying to get a read on all these different players, how everyone's doing, who's putting up Damian Lillard numbers, who's putting up Anthony Davis numbers. I've just been flicking through box scores endlessly. Who's up, who's down? Oh, mate, it's good.
You haven't been reading the old Slush Magic recipe book?
I that's on the to-read list. I haven't got around to that one yet because there's just been a couple too many good basketball games on to
teach yourself how to make a good slushy there, Wildcard. I've been reading a thing from Sports Illustrated, and an interview with Steve Nash.
Oh,
how about his
love a bit of Steve Nash.
He's gone back to his first love, which was football, and he started a little, I think it's 9 years, coming up 10 years, little football tournament in New York.
Yeah.
But he was telling,
Dirk's played in it before.
Yeah, he was telling stories about how he's met different football players, trained with Spurs 3 times and whatnot.
He's a Spurs fan, I believe.
Yeah, the yarn that really caught my eye was he was just chilling in France, and old Thierry Henry hit him up.
Oh, no way.
And he said, just pop on down to training, come have a kick around, we're a bit bored. So old Steve Nash rocks up, and he's just having a kick around with Thierry Henry and Zinedine Zidane.
He's a talent too, Steve Nash. I know the ankles and the knees aren't quite what they once were, but he's got some ability on the footy field if you find the old highlights of him, you know. He's, being Canadian, of course. I think he was born in South Africa, and he's got at least one English parent, so you can see where he gets a bit of that from. I also reckon if you watched him play back in the day, he brought a bit of that to the basketball court, you know, a bit of that footy vision.
Well, that's what he said. He said he always played with his head on a swivel because in football you got to receive the ball, check over which shoulder, both shoulders to see where the defences are, and that helped him in the basketball arena. But just the thought of having a kick around with Zidane just had me frothing. Like, he's my favourite footballer ever, and I just sat there after reading that and I just thought, what would I do in a kick around with Zinedine Zidane? I'd just do nothing. That would be embarrassing.
You wouldn't even be able to kick it for worry that he would laugh or something like that, or
Susie, you alright, mate?
Even if he just headbutted you or something, you'd be able to. I mean, you wouldn't be unique in that, but you'd be able to brag about something like that. Lovely.
What have you been listening to, mate?
What I've been listening to is the great one, Iggy Pop. I had a new album out earlier this year, which I bloody loved, called Post Pop Depression. Sort of a few teasings that he's chucked out there that it may be his last album, at least from his own point of view, is the last Iggy Pop album. I don't mind if that's the case. I think a guy like him doesn't really need to be chocking on into his 70s once he turns 70, you know what I mean? But right now he's still doing quality work. That was a great album. Worked with Josh Homme in producing it. But he's also since then been doing the rounds, doing a few tours, and he was on Austin City Limits this week, which was a fantastic performance. The dude's so good. It takes him about maybe 3/4 of the way through Lust for Life before the shirt's going on. In fact, he didn't even have a shirt. He just had a blazer over his unshirted self, his bare torso. Ripped it off within mate, once he hit like that second or third chorus, it was gone. I loved it. So to be honest, I could listen to a bit of Iggy all the time. It's only one Iggy, mate.
There's definitely only one Iggy Pop, and there's only one Danny Brown wildcard.
That's true.
He's released a new album, Atrocity Exhibition, and I'm kind of struggling to write my review for it because it's just music, it's just noise. And Danny Brown's got a very unique set of vocals, very unique. Like, he can change how he delivers, how fast he rhymes, what sort of tempo, the pitch, everything changes. But just some of the sounds you're hearing, there's some just click-clacking, there's some UK kind of grimy garage infused stuff. There's just a whole lot of weird production and music in behind his already weird vocals, and it's I think it's just it's a win for creativity.
Yeah, nice.
He's just putting the win up for creativity as opposed to the radio stuff. So
I'm pretty sure I wrote a review of Post-Pop Depression earlier in the year as well, if anyone wants to look at it. The other one I was going to say is, have you heard that new, speaking of idiosyncratic vocal stylings, have you heard that new Anderson .Paak one?
No Worries?
That's the one?
Yes, I have heard
the lad,
snippets.
Goes alright, mate.
Yeah,
goes alright.
Anything Anderson .Paak goes alright.
Oh, dude, he is having one hell of a hot streak for 2016, ain't he? And that one's going to do bloody nicely alongside the Summer Barbecues. It's that kind of album.
Low-key note, wildcard, if I may. Kendrick Lamar had a pretty impressive run. It's still continuing. He's still getting big dosh for a few features, releasing his albums and mixtapes, whatever.
Yes.
Who's his mentor, if you will? One of his mentors, Dr. Dre, signed to TDE through and Aftermath Interscope.
That's true.
Anderson .Paak, another guy on a hot streak. Who's his mentor? Dr. Dre. There we go, mate. There we go. So Dr. Dre's still got his fingerprints on the game at the moment.
What was his thing? He was the first hip-hop billionaire, was it? Or something along those lines?
I'm sure Master P or Russell Simmons might have something to say about that, being hip-hop moguls that they are.
Yeah, but none of them have Cam Newton's favourite headphones. What I've been watching this week is the final season, which has just kicked off, of the show Rectify, which plays on the Sundance channel. You may have heard of that at least their name, maybe not the channel, but they have a bit of a film festival.
Oh.
And the channel's based on the Sundance Film Festival brand, the whole thing, Robert Redford, all that crap. This is their first show of original dramatic scripted programming called Rectify, run by a fella named Ray McKinnon. You may or may not recognise him, dear viewer, from Deadwood back in the day. He was the drunk preacher in the first season. He's also very handy director, writer, so anything he's got his fingerprints on is worth a go. The show's about a fella who has been imprisoned on death row for about 20 years for a crime that he may or may not have committed. We don't really know. We don't really get to, at least we haven't found out at this point. Few people have their theories, but the great thing about the show is that it doesn't really deal in black and white. It doesn't really deal in yes and no. It's very poetic in that way, you know what I mean? Likes to deal with, there's a quote in the end of the third season where one character's having a big old crisis of faith and talking about God and worrying about whether, what's true, what's not. And he says, I find that God lives in between the seconds. And as philosophical as that is, that's where the show lives as well, in between the seconds. At times, brutally realistic, at times somewhat ethereal, dream quality-like thing to it, but always brilliant. I love it. One of my favourites.
Well, I don't know if I can match that on a spiritual level, but
a few things can.
Old Graham Bessinger.
Yeah.
He does a half hour on ESPN every now and again. Check out his YouTube page, because a lot of those interviews get segmented up and get put on YouTube, and he had Wayne Gretzky recently. So just hearing about how Wayne Gretzky started, like the early stage of his career when he got drafted, having to work a job and coming from a pretty blue-collar family in Canada. And then to when he got traded, here he was thinking he was untradeable.
Yeah.
Kind of the owner, GM, has different ideas, doesn't want Wayne Gretzky getting too big for his boots. And just the way, hearing how Wayne Gretzky talked about dealing with that and the way he conducted himself through that was pretty eye-opening. because at the time he's the best ice hockey player in the world, and now he's the best ever. So
Yeah.
who's going to trade a bloke like that? But happened to him, happened to any athlete. As they say, it's always a business wildcard.
It is. It is. Did they at any time during the little interview refer to him as the Michael Jordan of hockey? Because I've heard that one a couple times. You don't often hear it the other way around, the Wayne Gretzky of basketball, which would be equally adept.
Well, I'd consider you the Wayne Gretzky of Steven Adams coverage.
Yeah, I'll take that compliment. I consider you to be the Michael Jordan of Warriors coverage.
I'd consider you to be the Steven Adams of Winston Reed coverage.
Ooh, and I would consider you to be the Amy Satterthwaite of Lydia Ko coverage.